So when you're sitting comfortably, then I will begin. Ooh. Okay. Even though, I like saying this, even though these questions are supposed to be anonymous, you all had little forms you had to sign, so I can check your handwriting to find out who is responsible. Dear Ajahn Brahm, do you lead guided meditation on these retreats? Of course I do, every time. Sit down, shut up, be quiet, and off you go. That's my guided meditation. But sometimes people love to have guided meditation. They can all come in together and I tell you exactly what to do, like I sometimes do at Nolamara Temple on a Friday night. But no one comes in at the same time, so we can't all start together. So if I start guided meditation, I'll have to start again in 2 minutes when somebody else comes in and then they leave. And so because of the way we have this retreat, that there's no schedule, it makes it almost impossible to actually to have a guided meditation from up here. So instead, what you can do is you can get your little iPhones or gizmos, whatever you've got, and get some earphones, and you can have your own guided meditation, which means you can plug it in, and then there's so many guided meditations online, and you can play it to yourself. You can even have something in the earphones. If you start nodding, it gives you electric shock. So that's a wonderful idea. That means that you never get sleepy during the meditation. So you can also have all sorts of programs ready for guided meditation. You can have it like an ECG on the brain, which when you start thinking, again, it just, in the earphones it says, stop thinking, stop thinking. And that'd be a wonderful guided meditation. So that's the reason why we don't do it formally, but if ever you want to do a guided meditation, you can get it on the some gizmo, iPhone or iPad or I don't know what you call them, and you can just do it yourself. Dear Ajahn Brahm, if stillness leads to enlightenment, what about action? Action leads to death. It is, because you've only got a certain amount of energy, in your body, and if you use it up very quickly, you die when you're young. That's what I think. So the more slowly you can go in life, the more you can actually be still, the longer you live. Look, what happens when you put something in a refrigerator? It lasts a long time because it's cool. So if you keep cool, take off your blankets and then you'll live much longer. And if that doesn't work, my secret for long life is a product. You can buy it in the supermarket. It's called long life milk. That's what it says, long life milk, so it must give you long life. It says it on the packet. But no, action, it just gets you tired, and it gets you, it's okay to do some service, it gives you a bit of energy, but with too much action, we do so much in our life, we just do not know how to do nothing. There was, at lunchtime today, I go to Bodhinyana, there was a Vietnamese monk who came over, he's interviewing all the well-known famous monks in Australia. And so one of the questions he asked on the video, which he did just after lunch, and he said, of all the things you teach the monks in this monastery, what is the most important thing you teach them? In a nutshell, what do you teach the monks? And my answer was, I said, I teach them to do nothing. That's what I said. And wow, that was really deep. Anyone can teach you to do action, to build, to sweep, to wash the dishes. That's easy to do. And I'm teaching you how to do nothing. To sit under the mango tree perfectly still. That's what I'm teaching you. But you guys are so stubborn. You're always doing things. Ugh. What about all the hard-working, active people who help others by themselves, never experience stillness, peace? Do they get enlightened? Of course they don't, because everybody is helping each other, and no one's actually doing anything. That's why, they have the idea in Mahayana Buddhism, to abandon all of your own personal things so other people can become enlightened. So I abandon my own enlightenment so other people can become enlightened. Now that doesn't work unless there's actually some people who are willing to become enlightened. So as Theravada monks, out of great compassion for the Mahayanas, we said, okay, we volunteer to become enlightened so that you can be bodhisattvas. So I put my hand up, I volunteer to actually... Somebody has to be still, because otherwise we're always working so hard. Look, I work very hard to get this place for you to be still, to have a jhana growth. And what happens is other people work hard in his place. Well, look, the whole purpose of this place is for you to be still, to be peaceful. So don't do so much. Later on, you can start doing things. But right now, do nothing. This is one of my jokes. Somebody rang up the monastery and they said, we need someone to come and do some chanting. Someone's died. Can you come and do some chanting? They asked the monk. And the monk said, sorry, I can't come today. I'm busy. And the caller said, what are you doing? He said, I'm doing nothing. That's what we're supposed to do as monks, okay? I'm busy. I can't come. And the caller understood. Fair enough. That's what monks are supposed to do. They're supposed to do nothing. That's what we teach, that's what we should practice, so we're not hypocrites. So the guy hung up and he called the next day. And he got the same monk at the monastery and he said, I called yesterday, I really need someone to come and do some chanting. Can you come today? And the monk said, sorry, I'm busy. That's what you said yesterday. Yeah, I'm busy again today. What are you doing today? He said, I'm doing nothing. But that's what you said yesterday. Yes, said the monk, I'm not finished yet. And I like that, because that is actually very deep. So get nothing out of the way, first of all. Finish doing nothing. Get enlightened first, and then you can go around helping others. Dear Ajahn Brahm, can the nimitta feel infinitely kind? Yes. Can it enfold you with love? Yes. Can it and you become one? Yes. Can the joy be quiet other than excited? Yes. Can the nimitta be located kind of at your core, then spread out? Yes. That's an easy question. Yes. Very, very good. Now these nimitta, these lights which come, they can be incredibly powerful, and they do sort of envelop you. And I'm always interested with how people experience those nimittas. Actually, it's a very good question there. That person, if it's what they say is what they've experienced, that's excellent. But when actually those nimittas, they get very powerful, and I've already said they get very blissful. You know how many people experience that bliss? They experience it like a pure love. Now, bliss, ecstasy, and just the highest expression of human love are just indistinguishable. Because when you feel just unconditional love, it's just so peaceful, so beautiful, so blissful. There's, basically, you open the door of your heart, there's nothing missing, total acceptance, total peace, total just being. You're not striving anymore, because love just frees you to be who you are. You don't have to change anything. And that is just such bliss, and some people experience it as the highest love. So love and bliss in the highest form are indistinguishable. And so that's sometimes how people experience the deep meditations. The Piti Sukha, they sometimes say the bliss, sometimes they come along and say it's just pure love. Fair enough. Dear Ajahn, but those of you who haven't even been able to watch the breath yet, don't worry. There's always these smart asses in the retreat who get all these nimittas, and it's usually they're the people who've come the very, very first time. And you've been coming for years and years and got nothing. And saying, oh, geez, I might as well go home. Don't worry about that. You'll get it in the end. Some people say one needs to have good merit to have babies. This is true, because they're not easy to look after. Well, look, that must be not true. Some people say you need to have good merit to have babies. I've got good merit. And I don't have babies. That proves the point. So the cause of having good babies, having good merit, that's what I say here. Now, sometimes it's like if you're a girl, obviously boys can't have babies, but if you're a girl and you want to have a baby, sometimes, it's not so much merit. Sometimes there's karma involved, you can't have a baby. But look, instead of having a baby, have a dog. Dogs don't cost so much to look after. And they don't sort of, wake you up in the middle of the night, just crying and wanting something, you haven't got a clue what they want. Dogs are so easy to please, and they don't cost very much to look after. You get a kid, you have to send them to school. First of all, you've got to send them to play school and then primary school and make sure they all do the homework. Dogs don't need to do homework. And they don't go around sort of borrowing your car and getting into all sorts of mischief and stuff like that. Dogs are so amazing. So why don't have kids? Have a dog. It's much nicer. They're much easier to look after. And they're always happy to see you. They never talk back at you like your children do. So dogs are cool. Forget about babies. I get into big trouble sometimes. The BSWA website says the Buddha can only show the way. You yourself have to strive for it. What is the saying in Pali, and what should be the correct translation? And they only say that, they show the path. You have to walk the path. It's usually the translation, not strive. You have to walk the path. It's like saying, this is what you should do. You have to be still. You have to let go. And I can't do that for you. I can't get you by the neck and say, let go, let go. How many times I've got to say to you, let go, be still. I can't sort of put you in a straitjacket, tie you down so you're still. Sometimes I think about that. So, you can't do it for them. You just show the way, you have to do it. That's what it means. And I'm not responsible for the BSWA website. I never look at it. You seem to try to convince us sneakily. I'm a very sneaky monk. Convince us sneakily to shave off our hair and be a monk or a nun. I don't get inspired when you talk like that, since I don't want to be anything. I'm not impressed by any institution. Do you think you can just teach Dharma without giving hints to ordain by over-idealizing monasticism, make it seem like another caste system? Other than that, you are great. If you hadn't said that last, I'd have looked at the handwriting and blacklisted you. It's wonderful to leave the caste of lay people. Look, having hair is just a mess. How much does it cost to keep your hair looking nice and all these fashions? I used to get it very long when I was young. Had really long hair like Jimi Hendrix hairstyle. You know what happened? My mum said, get it cut. And I did, and she still wasn't happy. She said, that's not what I meant by having your hair cut. Shaving it all off. And it's so cool. Look, who's one of the coolest dudes? Bruce Willis. So, shave off your hair would be cool. And I never have a bad hair day. I don't have to go to hairdressers. You guys, how much it costs and hairdressers. And sometimes, even worse these days, you've got to dye your hair. Even guys have to dye their hair, not just one colour, a bit here and a bit there. Oh, that must be really messy. So you don't want to be anything. If you don't want to be anything, it says, I like that, I don't want to be anything. If you don't have to be anything, you have to let go. Let go of your hair, so don't be your hair. So easy to do. I'm not impressed by any institution. Well, we don't have to be impressed by any... You do get into institutions. I'm not sure if these are married. You remember that story I said the other day, that love is blind? And marriage is an institution for the blind? It's an institution, isn't it? So, no, this is not an institution. This is just a beautiful community of peaceful hermits, having a wonderful time, serving other people. It's a caste system. Yes, we cast everything out until we've got nothing left, not even our hair. And we always remember sort of, when you shave off your hair, many people get enlightened when they shave off your hair, because it's one of the great symbols of impermanence. Hair today, gone tomorrow. Buddhism is wonderful, wise, compassionate, and a beautiful path, but I have just one problem with it. Is this the same guy? Probably is. This is the concept of Nibbana as total extinguishment. This seems rather uninspiring and even a bit depressing, given the beauty and kindness there is, as well as suffering, of course. Thank you for commenting. Okay. What is being extinguished? It's just the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. The fires inside which burn you. So those are things that are being extinguished. So instead of having fires and heat, you are so cool, so peaceful, so still. But some of you coming from the hot countries like Sri Lanka and Malaysia who quite like fires this time of the year. And this is learning how to be cool and still and peaceful. And after a while you think, what's so depressing? The one thing that's really depressing is getting reborn again. Do you really, really, really want to get reborn again and be a baby once again, starting life with having your bottom smacked just to get you to breathe? And just every time you want something, they put this pacifier inside your mouth. And just having to go to school again. Do you want to do that again? And having to go through all these lectures and homework and exams and stuff. Do you really want to do that again? So if you do, you're crazy. So that's why extinguish samsara. Gone forever. And I like the idea sometimes, because I was into physics and astronomy, of these meteors which go round and around, these lumps of ice, round and round the solar system, thousands, millions of times, millions of orbits, for billions of years. And then, going round and round so many times, they actually meet the Earth's atmosphere. It's just such an unlikely event, but it does happen. And when it does, it burns. And you see it in these shooting stars at night. Incredibly beautiful to see. Beautiful bright light streaking through the sky. And then it stops. Its journey around samsara ended forever. Like the meteor around the solar system. That's like the enlightened being. Going round and round, many births, and then finally they meet the Dhamma. They understand. And just like a meteor, it's beautiful enlightened being, giving shining radiance to the world. And then, gone forever. Beautiful. As Ajahn Brahm said, he liked endings, not more things. The trouble with life, we get one thing out of the way, we've got to do another thing. Build a monastery, then you've got a big meditation centre. You finish the meditation centre, yes, at last. Now you've got to help building the nuns' monastery. I don't know what we're going to do next once the nuns' monastery is finished. Maybe a gay monastery? You've got to have equity for everybody. I don't know, what should we do next? Yes, exactly. The next project is nothing. So that's actually, nothing means extinguishing, finishing, ending. This whole idea of stopping things, finishing, extinguishing, a fire going out, cooled at last. What had to be done has been done. That's peace. But if you don't get it, it doesn't matter, because again, I'm very sneaky. I will sneak you into ceasing. Dear Ajahn, last night you briefly mentioned appearance of a coming of a Buddha is cyclic, and so there'll never be a period in the universe without the teaching of a Buddha, and of course there will always be an Ajahn Brahm too. You mean you have to endure all these jokes forever and ever and ever? No, what it is, Buddha is cyclic, but I kind of like this, because When I was a physicist, I was really inspired by Fred Hoyle, who had this idea of a steady state. There's always a creation, of stuff in the universe. And I was reading Rupert Sheldrake. For many, many years, that steady state idea of not the evolution of the cosmos, of the universe, but there's always new stuff coming up. And I was very interested to see Rupert Sheldrake's book, which I was reading in my spare time. He was actually saying that the dark matter, which people don't understand what is, does appear to be actually coming into existence. This whole idea of conservation of energy, which is just a theory, never been proved, and there's no reason why it should be there. He said that it's a rule, a law which has got no foundation at all. So you can have this stuff being created all the time. So there's a steady state. If you look on long periods of time, many big bangs, it's like a continuous universe rather than has a beginning and an end. The whole idea of having universe having a beginning and an end doesn't make sense to me. Because if there was a beginning, where was it before the beginning? Where was it before the end? And instead, the idea which you got into your head, the simile of an ant on a football. An ant on a football or a basketball goes round and round and round and round and round. There's no end to it. There's no edges on it. But it can go round forever. Round and round and round. To many people, that's samsara. Round and round and round and round. Did you ever see that movie Groundhog Day? Yes. Is that what you want to keep doing? Getting reborn again, again, again? That guy in Groundhog Day got sort of fed up after a while. And I just... Again, here we go again, going to school, falling in love, going to work. When's an end of this? So this is where the end is. But the cyclic part of it, there'll always be some Buddhas, but then the Buddha's teaching will disappear, and then it will rise up again, and then it will disappear again. So there are times when there'll be no teachings at all, and then it'll disappear for a while, then it'll come back again. That's the nature, cyclic nature of life. Ajahn Brahm, I also heard from other senior monks that monks' nuns will have monks' nuns sufferings. I enjoy simple life, silent meditations, 8 precepts, but I am bad in giving diplomatic answers, teaching, or counseling. If friends or relatives ask my opinion, advice, often it turns up as a disaster. It is the only option to be a long-term anagarika only. Since it will not deserve alms, I don't mind to set up an account for my own expenses. Thank you. No, it's just like one of my friends a long time ago said, I really want to be a monk. But can I be a monk and have every Saturday night off? That's fair enough. You go to work, you don't work 7 days a week. You have your weekends off. Can I have an hour or 2 off? No, you're a monk, you're a monk. And you don't have to give advice to other people. The only reason people ask monks for advice, you know the main reason why? Because we're free. You cheapskates. You should go to a counsellor, go to some professional. But the monks, you can ask, you don't have to pay any cent at all. That's why monks are very, very popular counsellors, because we're cheap. That's one of the main reasons. We also give some good advice, but not all monks, not all nuns. And they have one of the great monks in the time of the Buddha, Anuruddha. He couldn't teach at all. So he never gave any great talks, and the Buddha said, no, he's a just good meditator. He doesn't have to teach. So not all monks, not all nuns will be teachers. They'll be great meditators. They can do all sorts of other things. So you don't... For example, there's this one monk in the time of the Buddha. I did mention him the other day. He's one of the monks like Ananda who rose up into the air, entered the fire element, and just burnt himself. And he was this young novice. He got enlightened when he was only 7 years of age. And, interestingly, when he was having his hair cut off. So if you don't get enlightened or anything, for the 9 days of this retreat, come here and you have a good chance when I cut your hair off. I'm sneaky again. But it happened, he got enlightened at that time. And he didn't know what to do, but he got a nice little service in the monastery around Rajagaha, because it was a huge place. They had all these different places, like the Vulture's Peak, the Bamboo Grove, other little caves and rocks where the monks would stay. And he said, well, if they arrive late at night, I can actually assign their lodgings for them. So that's what he did for the Sangha. He would know where all the monks were and what places were free, and he would take them to their lodgings. But because he was totally enlightened, he could now make his finger glow at night, so he didn't need a flashlight. And this is actually what it says, and it makes a lot of sense, because in this story it says, and many monks deliberately arrived late at night so they could be taken to their places and watch this guy's finger glow. And they did it on purpose, because everyone likes to sort of watch psychic powers and stuff. And so he would actually do this. He became very famous for not needing a flashlight, just making his finger glow and they could see where they were going. That's really cool, isn't it? Unfortunately, we don't need that here because we've got all these stupid electric lights. So you can't ask the venerable sisters over there, can you please guide me to my kuti, because the sisters get... Okay. So we don't need that over here, so that's what happens. So that's the reason why he became... So he wasn't giving any talks, he wasn't sort of answering any questions. So don't think all monks and all nuns have to be counselors. They're not. And don't think because a monk is a counselor they're somehow much better than other monks. So you can't judge who is a really wise monk or nun in front of me. I'm just the front person, the talker. Who knows, many of those nuns may be far more enlightened than I am. Some of the monks, who knows what's going on in their minds. So you don't have to be a talker, a preacher, you don't have to be a counselor, just be a monk. So that means you can give your money all away, and you don't have to give any advice. Dear Ajahn, are all 4 levels of jhana needed in order to get enlightened, to stream winner or to an arahat? Certainly to become once a non-returner or an arahat, certainly you do need the jhanas. That is said clearly by the Buddha in Mahamalunkyaputta Sutta. Without the jhanas you can't get to be a non-returner or full enlightenment, nor in just the same way you can't get to the heartwood of a tree without going through the bark and sapwood. You do need the jhanas, it's part of the path. If the Buddha knew that you didn't need the jhanas, he would have given you a 7-fold path, not an 8-fold path. He had an 8-fold path because the last factor jhana was necessary. He was so kind and simple. You know, he pared it back to the minimum. If you didn't need it, he wouldn't have told you to do it. But it was needed, so that's why you have to have the jhanas to become enlightened. To be a stream winner, that is more controversial. But me, I put my hand up and say, I can't see how anyone can actually get the fruit of stream winning without the jhanas. I can't see it. And I'll give an example later on when I talk about insight. I've been meditating with earplugs to block out the noise and Ajahn Brahm's jokes. No, it doesn't say that. But it also means the sound of my breathing and heartbeat are amplified. Do you think this would interfere with the meditation process you have been teaching us? Thanks. No, it doesn't, because the earplugs, I've been encouraging people to get earplugs, because there's always some noise around when you live with other people. And many of you will probably, if you haven't seen already, the cave where I live, that's so quiet, it's so soundproof, that it spoils me. That when I go anywhere else, I'm too sensitive to noise. And I always wanted to meditate on the aircraft because I go traveling and it's just so noisy in those aircraft. The kids screaming, rah, 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 or some attendant coming up to you, would you like a drink, sir? Shut up, I'm meditating. And so somebody, not here, Venerable Sankapa, he told me you can get these incredible earplugs. They squeeze some sort of gel into your ear and let it set, silicone. Then they take it out again, it's molded. And then, you get these earplugs which fit perfectly into your ear and you don't feel a thing. And the first time I used that, I wanted to meditate on an aircraft, and so I put these things in. It worked so well, I fell asleep instead of meditating. I was tired of been traveling a long time. And then I sort of got up afterwards, I went into the toilet, and I thought, this aircraft is really quiet. What's going on? It's absolutely true. And then I realised I had the earplugs in. You didn't know they were in there. They were excellent. And there's always some you can focus on, but at least it takes a lot of the noise out. And when it's, the feeling, the heartbeat is a difficult one in meditation. If you start focusing on your heartbeat, you can't calm that down. If you calm that down and that stops, you're in big trouble. So what you can do, you can focus on your breath, which is moving. This is actually, I was going to talk about problems in meditation tomorrow, but this is one of them. If you do start focusing on your heartbeats, and it's so difficult to actually get peace then, so also focus on your breathing. And put your breath in the center and the heartbeat, to the right or the left a little bit. So your center is on the breath. Because it's a little technique I'll go into more detail tomorrow, focusing. You can imagine your mind having a screen. We can fit many things onto that screen, but the most important is what is in the center of your screen, the main object. So the main object will be the breathing, and you can hear the heartbeat on the edge, but it's not in the center. If it becomes problem, then it comes into the center. So it's not a problem. You're focusing on the breath, and the heartbeat's on the edge there somewhere. And then after a while, you find you focus in. It's just a natural phenomena. And it's like the feeling of the heartbeat just falls off the edge. I don't know where it goes or when it goes, but it disappeared. It's similarly focusing. I'll say more about that later on. But the breath is easy to deal with because you can calm it down. It gets very still and disappears. The heartbeat is a problem. Your emptiness. Please explain the mind. In Jhana, we see a reflection of the mind. It's usually the nimittas, we say, the reflection of the mind. It's beautiful light. The mind has a doer and a knower. Yes. When we breathe in and out, the knower is watching, but we have no self. Please help me to understand. Thank you. Yeah, this doer is what you assume to be yourself, because you assume you're in control, that you decide what you do and what you don't do, and that is a big illusion. I'll again say more about that later on. We think I am the one who does things, that I am responsible, I am the hopeless meditator, or I am the good meditator. That's why I say Ajahn Brahm has to vanish before meditation happens. And then you don't do anything. There is a link between doing and being. And that's why this is, well, it's a bit of a joke, but this is an insight, which was, when I was at Cambridge, this was scrawled as graffiti on the walls of the philosophy department. The stone walls of the philosophy department had this scrawled on its outside by some smart student. To do is to be. That was Descartes, René Descartes, the French philosopher. To do is to be. And early last century, that was turned around by Jean-Paul Sartre. Not to do is to be is to do. The existentialist philosopher. And that was summed up by Jean-Paul Sartre was early 20th century, was summed up by the great American philosopher in the late 20th century. Doobie-doobie-doo. Frank Sinatra. I remember seeing that on the walls. In those days, graffiti was really cool because it actually meant something. And the other graffiti I always remember from that time was on the physics department. And they had there, the eminence of a great physicist is measured, actually a scientist, the eminence of a great scientist is measured by the length of time they stop progress in their field. That's really good, because when you become eminent, when you become an expert, everyone believes you, which means no one actually challenges it, and there's no more progress. And those are brilliant little sayings I remember from my time. So when people scroll something on the walls, it actually meant something, and it was very deep and wonderful. What's that to do with the question? Yeah, we have no self, yeah. So doing and being are connected. So when you disidentify with being the doer, most of you vanishes. You're just not there anymore. That is why it is so hard to let go. Why it's so difficult not to do anything. Because it's like you, the most important part of you, is let go for a little while. That you have to disappear. Your greatest attachment to the sense of who you are is challenged. And tomorrow morning I will say that one of the biggest hindrances, obstacles to the deep meditation is fear. You get really challenged in the deep meditations. You're vanishing and you're not really quite sure whether you want to vanish yet. But you've got no choice, it happens. So these insights you get in this meditation, these are powerful. They turn you upside down. They're scary as hell. But it's truth. It's one of the amazing things, if you are committed to truth, you have to be courageous, willing to let everything go. Every view, every idea, every possession. Giving up your money is easy. Giving up who you think you are is tough. That's why few actually make it and become enlightened. We'd rather just keep our wrong view and not be challenged than turn our whole life upside down and see there's no one in here. Da, da, da. Okay, more tomorrow. Dear Ajahn, Lord Buddha's teachings were passed down generation after generation for how many centuries before it was documented? He had said subject universe is incomprehensible. How he not predicted the end of the world in another situation? Okay, passed down from generation to generation, but it was one of those oral traditions where there were so many monks were learning these suttas or these teachings, and they would practice them together. The chanting which we do here, you know where that came from? We didn't have services in Buddhism earlier. The chanting started as monks rehearsing the teachings. So they would all come together, they would research, they would chant a sutra to make sure that no one made mistakes, so everybody got it right. And it was done several generations before the first documented in the Alavihara in Sri Lanka. But if you want to know more about how authentic are those teachings, can we really say that these are truly the words of the Buddha? You just ask Ajahn Brahm or Ajahn Sujata. They've been working on this authenticity project. These incredible arguments using the teachings, using the fact that the Chinese tradition and the Pali tradition are almost identical when it comes to the sutras, using other logical formula to show there's a sense of convergence, that what we have in the Agamas of the Chinese Mahayana and the Sutta Pitaka of the Theravada, that is almost certain the word of the Buddha. And it's a very strong argument. So they're going to be publishing this online pretty soon. It's almost finished. It's called the Authenticity Project, to have a very watertight argument. And recently they sent it off, they're telling me, to Professor Richard Gombrich of Oxford University. And hopefully to get some comments. And he liked it so much, he said, I want to publish a whole lot of this. This is great stuff. So that's our two monks, two of my babies, Ajahn Brahm and Ajahn Sujata. These are, people I've taught. He said, the subject universe is incomprehensible. How not predict the end of the world in another situation? There was a monk, and this was before the time of, I think, the previous Buddha. He developed the ability to levitate. He was like Olympic standard levitation. So one day he thought, where is the physical end of this world? So he decided to go and find out. So he levitated out of the atmosphere Now this is actually what it says, which shows that these time of the Buddha, they had a very good concept of at least the solar systems, and because he said he went so far to places where the sun and moon shine not, which is out of the solar system. Just to have the idea that, in the Christian ideas, in those days, as soon as you went outside of, above the earth, you went to heaven. Just not that far. This guy went way beyond where the sun shines. And not surprisingly, he passed away on the journey, never finding where the end of the universe was. And when he got reborn, he got reborn as like a heavenly being, and then he still was really wondering, where on earth does this universe end? And so he went to this level of devas, the first level of devas, of gods, and said, now where does the world cease without remainder? And they said, we don't know, but there's another level of gods above us. So he went to the next level, and they referred him up the next level. You know what it's like working with the government? They always refer you on to something else. This is like the government of the universe. Until he finally went to the top god. We know Brahma. And Brahma said, I am God. I am the creator, the firstborn, the Lord of all that is, blah, blah, blah. And he said, that's not what I asked you. I asked you, where does the universe end? I am God, the firstborn, the creator, the knower of everything. Look, where does the universe end? He said, I am God, I am Brahma. That's not what I asked you. And the God took him aside and said, listen, monk, I don't know. But I don't want all these other people, they think I'm omniscient. I don't want them to lose their faith in me. And anyway, you're a stupid, young deva. Because if you want to ask that question, I don't know the answer, but there's a guy down on earth called the Buddha. He will know the answer. And so this monk, Rohitassa was his name, the first astronaut, way beyond, all these other people, Yuri Gagarin and stuff. And he asked the Buddha, and the Buddha gave this wonderful answer. Monk, the end of the world can be found in your own body and mind. That's a beautiful little saying. Stop looking out there. Look inside, and there you will find the end of the world. It's a great saying of the Buddha. So, you'll find the end of the world when you look inside. I love this retreat. Seriously though, I can't believe you got away with a question on nuns' equity. Can the ladies be treated equally too? I wish they were, instead of me having to do all the work. They get away easily. They come here and they just enjoy the meditation. They don't have to give a talk. They don't have to ask questions. They don't have to give interviews. Shall we treat them equally? Okay, you can do the interviews tomorrow, you two. No. Sometimes we have weird ideas of equity and equal. Because sometimes we don't realize that sometimes we think, oh, the monks, they just always give the talks and they always, do this and do that. And sometimes we think, actually, it's harder work. Sometimes I think, oh, Ajahn Brahm, you're so nice being Ajahn Brahm, you always take your food first. But because I take my food first, everybody watches what I put in my bowl. And it's true, and I get into big trouble when I don't put somebody's food in my bowl. An example of that, some years ago, a Thai girl offered some durian. And actually, I don't mind durian, but I don't usually take it these days. It's a bit smelly. I've eaten it before. So this day, I never took any. And she complained big time. Ajahn Brahm never took any of my food. Because in the Thai tradition, they have this idea that if you offer something to a monk, then you'll be able to get that to eat when you go in heaven. So because he was thinking, if I didn't take her durian, that means she will not get durian when she dies and goes to heaven. It's a stupid idea, but they actually think that. And on that same subject, it was only about a year ago, And I received a bag of supplies. When you do this Sangatana offering, if you go to Bodhinyana Monastery, you see they offer all these supplies for the monks, and some of those supplies come over here. And I received it and passed it to the Anagarikas, who took it down. And then they came up about 10 minutes later and said, Ajahn Brahm, did you realize in the bottom of this bag of stuff there was a bottle of Johnny Walker whiskey? And it's the only time in my life as a monk I've received a bottle of whiskey. It was hidden. I never knew anything about it. And I know why they did that. Because this was dedicated to their father who just passed away. And they thought, if we offer, even secretly, sneakily, a bottle of whiskey to a monk, that means Dad will get his whiskey up in heaven. It doesn't work that way. You just make good karma, and then you get whatever you want. So anyway, that is just why people give these things. And so if you're a senior monk, you have senior monks suffering. You can't just eat whatever you want and just no one sees, and that's fine. If ever I sneeze, I get lots of medicines people give me. Ajahn Brahm, I saw you sneeze. You have a cold. This was really good. This cured me. And then someone else comes, no. This is Chinese medicine. It's really good, much better than the Western man. No. This is homeopathic medicine. This is really good. You must take it. And they really come up at you. And, after a while you say, okay, I'll take it. That's the only way they'll leave you alone. You get some peace when you promise you'll take it. And in the end, I got all this medicine which I promised to take. And I have to keep my promises. And then I really get sick. So sometimes I'd love to be treated equal. So I can just sit here and enjoy a retreat, and you nuns can do all the work. So it is equal in the sense we all share things out, but it may not appear that when you don't know what you're talking about. Aren't fluctuations of the mind a natural state of affairs? Isn't cancer a natural state of affairs? But should we try and stop cancer? Isn't cold a natural state of affairs this time of the year? So shouldn't you take your blanket and hat off and just be natural? No, if there's a problem or difficulty, you have to deal with it out of compassion. So yeah, the fluctuation of the mind is natural, but it doesn't mean it's good. So see if you can let it be still. See if it can be warm and comfortable. So just because it's natural does not mean it's good. Please explain about guarding all the senses. Thank you. It means you're mindful, and if you see any danger coming in, you stop it. Just like you have a guard outside Jhana Grove, so any scallywags can't come in. You can't have thieves or psychopaths. Running away from the prison up the road is some very mean people in there. People who've done nasty things. They may be walking on the way here with their axes and chainsaws. This is the first stop on their way. No, because so we have guards, the invisible guards over Jhana Grove, so you're perfectly safe. So you have guards in order to keep people safe. So you have guards on the senses so you don't get angry and you don't get lust, you don't get things which steal your happiness away. But I like telling the story, because there's a few Vipassana people here, about the lady who went to the temple one evening. And she was very, very wealthy. So she was one of these women who lived in a mansion. And, I should have told this story this morning. She lived in a mansion with lots of stuff, so she had a guard on the gate of her house. And as she left to go to the temple, she told her guard, "You must be mindful. There are many burglars around. Be mindful." So he said, "Yes, ma'am, I will be mindful." And so she went to the temple, listened to a nice talk on mindfulness, just like I gave you this morning. And when she went back, she found her house had been burgled. And she was very upset at her guard saying, I told you to be mindful. And the guard said, but madam, I was mindful. I saw the burglars going in, and I noted burglar going in, burglar going in, burglar going in. I saw them taking all your jewelry out, and I noted, very mindful, jewelry going out, jewelry going out, jewelry going out. I saw them back in their big truck into your front of your house. Truck going in, truck going in, truck going in. I noticed the safe going out, safe going out, safe going out. I was very mindful. I noticed everything, man. Is that what mindfulness is? It's not enough. Remember I said mindfulness carries instructions with it. You're aware of the thieves, and if you see some thief going in, you ring the police or you stop them yourself if you can. You guard the gate of the mistress's house. Mindfulness is important, but also stopping things is important too. So guarding the senses means you have that guard there who's very aware of what's going on and knows who to let in and who to let out. Keep out. And you know, one of the best ways of making sure your house is safe when you leave is having very good, trustworthy friends stay in the house when you're away. So that's why the best way of keeping out bad mind states is having lots of good mind states in there all the time. The best way of keeping out anger, say, is having lots of compassion and kindness and inspiration, filling your mind with wonderful good states. So when you're out, anger, depression just cannot come in. So that's actually how we guard our senses. Dear Ajahn, when I do walking meditation, it's usually outside with lots of ants and insects. This way I'm usually in the present moment because I do not want to squash any small living beings. Is this achieving the goal of being in the present moment, or am I just playing games with my mind? Also, I killed an ant today. Murderer, murderer. I feel disappointed in myself. Should I continue doing walking meditation the same way or change? Now that's why we have the places inside here, so you don't have to kill any ants. Because a lot of times that if we're doing walking meditation outside, and sometimes that's all we're ever doing, and we're just paranoid, and we can't really become still and peaceful. Yeah, you're mindful, but not really still and peaceful. So that's why it's nice to do walking meditation here where there are no ants, and you don't have to worry about not killing anything. But sometimes you've got no choice, and sometimes that's what life is like. You know, whenever you're walking, sooner or later you're going to sort of step on an ant. When you're driving here, you're going to get some bugs on the windscreen. You can't really avoid that. So in life we try and lessen the distraction as much as we possibly can. But you can't be perfect, unfortunately. Dear Ajahn, when I'm having sustained attention on the breath, my heartbeat is so obvious that its rhythm is mixed into the breath. It looks inseparable, and my breath looks vibrating with the heartbeat together. Do I need to separate them or have attention on the breath and heartbeat together? Yeah, I mentioned the answer to this question earlier. Imagine the breath and the heartbeat on a screen. You know, that's how you're watching. But put the breath in the center, and after a while the heartbeat will disappear. Can you share with us your fondest memory of Ajahn Chah? What was your first impression of him when you first met him? When I first met him, I thought he was absolutely stupid. Honestly, because we were doing some little work for the monastery, and he looked at my work and said, "Oh, you are so clever, that's a very good thing you're doing." And I looked at what I was doing compared to what other people were doing, and my work was terrible. And I think, who does he think he is? I'm not going to fall for that praise stuff. So first of all, I thought, this is a crazy guy. It's not the way to treat Westerners, you know, just praising us like that for no reason. And then I was busy doing this work, and one of the monks, he had some questions. And so he went up to Ajahn Chah just to ask his questions. I was in earshot. And he was asking the questions through a translator, and the translator was translating it back into English. And this was really weird, because the answer was the question which was in my mind. And it had nothing to do with the question this monk had asked. And so I formulated another question in my mind. And then this second monk, he asked a question, and again Ajahn Chah gave a question which was totally irrelevant to this monk's question, but was a perfect answer to what I was thinking. I had all these questions I thought in my brain, and then Ajahn Chah answered them all. And I answered that monk afterwards. He said, "What do you think of Ajahn Chah's answers?" I couldn't understand a word of them. They were totally stupid. And there was a great teacher. He was reading my mind and answering my questions, not the guy whose questions were being translated. And that really impressed me. And that was a time when I thought, okay, this is something I want to some person I want to learn from. So that's how he got me. The questions he was answering were what I was thinking about. There is a sutta, can't remember the name, that states the only difference between the Buddha and the Arahats is the Buddha discovered the Eightfold Path. If he rediscovered it for himself, how does this fit with your theory that he remembered the teachings from his past life as a monk with Kassapa? Indeed, they don't say discovered it. It's almost like, rediscovered it. It was an old path, he said, in the jungle, leading to this ancient city. And he uncovered that path. It's always been there before. But it's like, discovered means you haven't created the path. Found this old path you've had before. So, and that's actually what the Buddha did. The first person to discover this old path which had been grown over, no one was walking on it before. And once he discovered and made that path, it made it much easier for other people to discover it. And that sutta, which is the Buddha, is a couple of suttas where the Buddha describes his life before as a monk under Kassapa the Buddha. And the most important one is the Gatikara Sutta. It's in the Majjhima Nikaya. And there the Buddha, he's talking to Ananda about this fellow called Gatikara. And he says in the time of the Kassapa the Buddha, he was one of these non-returners. The only reason he didn't become a monk was because his two parents were blind. So, they had no other means of support than him. So he was a potter, he made his pots, and he would never even sell them. He put them on the shelf outside with the sign, anybody wants a pot, help yourself. If you want to leave some rice and some lentils for me and my parents, please leave it here. And that's actually how he made his living. Totally unworldly. And he had a friend called Jyotipala, and Jyotipala was one of these people who was just not interested in religion at all. And so every time Gatikara said, "Come and see this Buddha Kassapa, he's a really amazing fellow," Jyotipala said, "No way. Basically, they're lazy, good-for-nothing parasites, shaven-headed, stupid people." Or something like that. But eventually, this Gatikara just, again, tricked Jyotipala to go in to see the Buddha Kassapa. And as soon as he saw the Buddha Kassapa and listened to a teaching, Jyotipala got so much faith and got so inspired that Jyotipala did become a monk. And the Buddha said, "That was me in my last life." Jyotipala. And that's amazing because there you have our Buddha Gautama in a previous life saying bad things about Kassapa because he didn't understand at the time. And if you also see in the the Devaputta Samyutta, Gatikara actually came down to see the Buddha because Gatikara was an anagami, and he sort of went to congratulate him under the Bodhi tree. Well done, you're a Buddha now. In our past life we lived in the same village together. We were best of friends. And there's a little poem in the Samyutta Nikaya. So there's so much evidence that this is actually true. Regarding what you said the other day of being a human being rather than a human doing, I was going to say, how do you do? But that doesn't seem like the right word. But how do you actually practice just being in daily life? Outside of meditation, you still need to do things, right? Yes. How can you fulfill your responsibilities by simply being? I don't get it. Okay. When it's time to stop, you don't plan anything. You're actually being here. And even when I'm doing something, I try to be here when I'm doing it. You know what they say in modern psychology? The process is important, the journey, not the goal. So it's how you are doing things, not where it's leading to. And if you make sure you're doing it well, you're actually being here, you're being kind, you're being gentle, you're being peaceful, then you are creating this beautiful future for yourself. So it's how you're doing things, not some sort of goal in the future somewhere. And that way you are actually being here. Instead of a lot of times, you're thinking where you want to be to tomorrow, and you're not really here at all. And so your going, is just missing out on life. Was it John Lennon? Remember what he said? He said, life is what happens when you're busy doing something else or planning something else. And a lot of times, for you, has life passed so fast? Where's it all gone? It's because you've been doing things all the time. You haven't been here. So you haven't got that much time left, some of you. So you better be here while there's still time to be here. You're going. Dear Ajahn, after listening to your recent Dharma talk, I used peace and let go words during breath meditation. It helped me a lot to be in the present moment. Thank you. I hope instead of breath in, peace, breath out, let go. This is okay. Of course it is. Excellent. It worked. Another satisfied customer. Suggestion. At the end of each day, let us share the merits accumulated for the day as follows. May all the merits we accumulated today be shared with all beings, seen or unseen, in and around Jhana Grove. May you all rejoice in them. May you be well and happy. It's a nice thing to do, but it's supposed to do it personally, because if we do it as a group, it doesn't have the same meaning. You're just repeating it because other people are doing it. This is a very, very well-known Buddhist practice. We don't just think of ourselves, we think of other beings. We share the merits with them. In other words, we give them our good karma. We certainly will do that at the end of the retreat, so let's wait until we've got even more merits before we can share them. Sometimes we're only starting building up our bank account of merits. When it's really a lot by the end of the week, then we can pay our bills. Dear Ajahn, healthy body, exercise, healthy mind, keep still. Ajahn Chah, could you explain insight of this? Can you explain insight of this? Could the mind look after the body with kindness, compassion, etc.? Don't know, but that's what Ajahn Chah used to say. If you want to have a strong body, exercise it. If you want to have a strong mind, keep it still. Great staying. Because a lot of time people think, no, if you want to avoid Alzheimer's disease and dementia, then exercise your mind, do Sudoku puzzles, play chess, do something with the mind. And Ajahn Chah is saying, no, keep the mind still, and then it has energy, and then you won't get dementia. Very powerful saying, and I'm right behind Ajahn Chah. And that's the insight of this, because the mind, when it's still, it creates energy. The body, if it keeps still, it just decays away. Long questions. Here we go. The Buddha's last meal, the last night. Did he commit suicide or not? Buddha may have accepted that meal that was offered to him by Chunda out of compassion to him. Even though the Buddha knew that it was poison, he did not allow other monks to partake it out of compassion to them. The Buddha knew 3 months from that meal that he will pass away to Parinibbana at that time. So would you say the Buddha knew what he was doing and that he passed away in complete stillness, sammasamadhi? But that's the other point. In 3 months before, the Chapala shrine, he deliberately gave up his life faculty. Giving up your life faculty is a mental suicide. You can't get out of the explanation. The Buddha decided to die. Made the clear decision, the conscious decision to end his own life. So,
he asked Venerable Ananda.
I know he didn't ask Venerable Ananda. He made a suggestion, but Ananda never saw it.
He made a mistake.
Well, it was not really Ananda's mistake. So if somebody wanted to carry on his life, he should just do it. But the Buddha actually said he renounced his life faculty, which means you let go of life. Is that suicide? I like that. It just stirs people up. It's not important at all. But, just sometimes people actually think that suicide is very, very wrong. That's a very Christian thing. And it would be because in Christianity that life is sacred, given by God, so it's not yours to decide how long you should live and how long you should not live. That's why, unless, if you're a soldier, then you can kill somebody. Or you can execute them. It's amazing just how many people say, yes, you can execute people, but you can't have abortions. That's the same state in the United States. It's okay to kill people, as long as they're bad guys. There's something sort of ethically sort of wrong there. Ajahn Brahm, from a book I read, it states that the Buddha and consciousness, a book I read, it says the Buddha said consciousness leaves the body 3 days after death. Is this true? The Buddha never said that. If so, where is it to be found in the teachings? It's not in the original teachings of the Buddha. I think where this came from is, I think it was a Sangha. He was one of the commentators, one of the founders of the Mahayana tradition. Now he, I think, said that. But that was about 1,000 years after the time of the Buddha. So, no, the body doesn't leave 3 days after death. Because of that, in some traditions, especially the Tibetan tradition, they say when a person dies, don't touch them. Their consciousness is still attached to the body. You'll disturb the process of dying. And that causes a lot of problems for people because in that tradition, someone's dead, and they say, no, can we cremate them? Can we even wash them? No, leave them alone. And that causes a lot of problems. And that's not original Buddhist teachings. Original Buddhist teachings, once the body's dead, it's dead. So you can cremate it, you can put it in the yellow recycling bin, which is my personal choice. You can do whatever you want with it. And especially you can harvest the organs. And it's so easy. Theravada monks, even Mahayana monks are okay. The Tibetan monks, they don't want their organs harvested because of that sort of saying, which they confuse as coming from the Buddha. It came from a monk 1,000 years later. So you can give your organs. I'm an organ donor. Any of my organs you can have. But I want one of your organs. I'm still looking for a nose transplant. I suffer hay fever. And I was looking for a nose, because hay fever, any of you got hay fever? It's terrible, isn't it? So now I'm looking for, they have hearts and livers and eyes. Surely no one needs a nose, so I can get one of their noses and have a nose transplant and they won't have hay fever anymore. And I also thought that, we try and be colorblind. In Buddhism, we don't care what race or what color you are. So to show that, I thought I would get an Aboriginal nose, a flat black one in the middle. But sometimes say, no, wouldn't it be better because there's so many like Malaysian, Singapore, Chinese people coming, have a Chinese nose in the middle of my Kwai Lo face. Yes, right. You know what Kwai Lo is. It's not a very nice word for a white man in Cantonese. But wouldn't it be nice, to have a Caucasian with an African nose? A great fashion statement, and a statement of racial integration. I don't know why other people haven't done that yet. Because people have all these transplants. Why does it have to be of your racial colour? You can have a Sri Lankan ear on one side and a African one on the other side. It'd be great what you could actually do with a bit of sort of... Anyway, I'll leave that one alone. Are monks and nuns allowed to wear deodorant? On a related note, I read in a Buddhist book that body odour is caused by jealousy. Is that true? On another related note, I noticed on this retreat I seem to have less body odour than usual. And the reason is why monks and nuns do not need to wear deodorant, because when you keep precepts, when you have high morality, the Buddha says you are fragrant. So this is the monks and nuns' fragrance, wafting throughout here. And if that doesn't work, light some incense. No, we don't usually. Now, if you really got a very bad smell, then fair enough, wear some deodorant, because it's not supposed to be cosmetic. It's out of compassion for the other people who have to smell you. But, a lot of times that's, no. And if you actually live a very peaceful lifestyle, then you don't really smell that much. Because, you're not so active, so you don't secrete so much stuff from your body. So because you have less body odor, it's because you're keeping good precepts. Dear Ajahn, the lay person who was in jhana and got taken to the hospital, which jhana would he be in? Surely a formless jhana, a rupa jhana. Is it possible to know which one of those? It's, from what he said, it's probably like a fourth jhana, from what he said. But, it was too, I didn't really talk enough to him. But it was a great, and he just fluked it, the only time he's done it. And did he do it again? I don't think so, but I haven't seen him for a while. But it's an amazing little story. There's even another guy, he's dead now, but he was in the British Army, and he told me this story, and he had always suffered from migraines. Don Ricotta, that was actually one story. He was in the, I can tell now because, he's dead. He was in the British Army, suffered all these migraines, and the only way he could deal with it was actually find a dark space, and just like a hut or something. He said go deep inside himself until he couldn't feel that pain anymore. And he said he was on some sort of maneuvers in Germany, and he was a sergeant, in charge of these soldiers. And they were told to have a cup of tea, so they had a cup of tea. And he didn't want a cup of tea. He had a terrible migraine. There was like an old farm barn somewhere. So he said, I'm going in the barn. And so, they knew that he was suffering from migraines. So off he went in there. It's dark, which is great when you have migraines. And he said he went deep inside himself. And what happened next was that the soldiers, they got the call up, pack up your stuff and go to the next destination. And they forgot him. So they're in their truck and a mile down the road, and they think, oh, we forgot our sergeant. So they turned around and they saw him, they went to they knew where he was in this barn. And these were soldiers, and they literally picked him up and bunged him in the back of the truck. They're not the most delicate of sort of people, these soldiers. And then he came out of his whatever he was in, and he was in the back of the truck. How the heck did I get in here? I was in the barn. And they told him what had happened. He hadn't felt anything. He was just deep inside, very peaceful, very happy, no pain. And that's a sign of a jhana. And he said later on in his life, he lost the migraines. They just vanished. And with it, he never had any ability to get back in those states anymore. And he said, I could do it when I had the migraines, but now I haven't got them. I can't do it anymore. So that's actually what happens when you get into the jhanas. You just go deep inside yourself. You can't feel the body anymore. Dear Ajahn, if the pure-hearted people can attain to jhana easily, then why sotapannas still have lust and anger? It is because they don't have much lust and anger. If there's a sotapanna, they're usually pretty sort of moral and very trustworthy. They don't get very angry or have lots of lust. But what usually will happen is, they're pure-hearted most of the time, but even the pure-hearted people, sometimes you have your bad days when you get upset or angry. And so, that's the reason why most of the time they're pure-hearted. Those times they can get into jhana easily, but when they have a bad day, they sometimes have lust and anger. So this is why sotapanna, it's not sort of secure, it's not sort of stable. I observe that even the giant trees of Jhana Grove die. What more may this tiny fragile body? Ajahn, I am old and tired and my mind is noisy. What should I do? You better get into jhana quickly. The time is running out. You're about to die. But look, there's a lot of advantages when you're old because, when you're old, most people don't get lust when they're old. And it's a waste of time getting angry. You've been there, done that. So you don't have much energy, when you're old. But you have a mellowness in you, which means, you don't think so fast. You're not so concerned and attached with all this worldly stuff. But the one thing, if anybody is old, please don't worry about your children. Now, that's one of the biggest problems for old people. They're not worried about money anymore, or houses, or politics, or football, or whatever. But it's their children they're worried about, and that's their biggest attachment. So please let go of your kids. You've done your job. You're old and tired. Your mind is noisy. What is it noisy with? So, when you've got no sort of attachments, nothing to worry about, it becomes calm by itself. So, there is advantages being young. There's also advantages being old as well. Why is it easier to train oneself to be kinder or more compassionate person than to still the mind? Because you don't really know what compassion is. You think you're being compassionate. I always like telling that story of the compassionate Boy Scout who saw this old lady, on this busy road, And out of compassion, he helped her cross the road. The trouble was, she didn't want to go. So much compassion is like that. You know, oh, I'll help you. Ajahn Brahm, this is really good food for you. Take this. And you think you're being compassionate to me. You're not. You're giving me a hard time. Ajahn Brahm, you're too fat. Out of compassion to you, we're going to lock you in a room and put you on a fast. That's not compassion for me. But you think it so much of the time we get into big trouble in the world. You notice the Western people, they went to all around the world out of compassion to develop those places. You know what we did? A lot of harm. And we really thought we were being compassionate by teaching them Christianity, teaching them development, teaching them to have roads and cars and shopping malls and TVs so they can watch these stupid soap operas all the time. Out of great compassion, we've ruined many countries and societies. And people really thought they were doing a kind thing. That's the problem. Kindness often is without wisdom. So we think we're being compassionate, but there's no wisdom behind it. So that's why the forced compassion is difficult. But the real compassion is as hard as stilling the mind. Although having a kind heart supports the stilling of the mind, it is not an automatic process, so the mind still needs to be trained. Indeed, but compassion needs to be trained as well. Too many people think they're compassionate and they're not. When I visited the cave where the first council was held, if not mistaken it's called the Satapani cave, yes, I was surprised how small it was. Yes, indeed. How could such a small cave be filled with 500 arahats? Can you comment, please? If ever you've been to, say, Japan, you can see how many people could be squashed into one of those railway cars. So that would probably happen in the Satapani cave. They had a few monks with white gloves pushing them in and pushing them in and pushing them in until the 500 arahats could actually... I'm only being cynical again. I've been there as well. It's impossible to get 500 people in there, even if you squash them up like sardines. So we don't really know whether that was a Satapani cave or not. That's why some of these people, if you go on these tours, you know, of India, some of these people who go on these tours, the guides, haven't got a clue what they're talking about. You know, but nevertheless, they get paid and they're Indians, so it helps the local economy, so just give them the money, but don't believe a word they say, because sometimes I've got a clue what they're on about. It's a nice place to go. There should be a distinction between an arahat relinquishing his or her life in the last birth and a person committing suicide. I thought all arahats decide in the last birth to end the existence and go through parinibbana to obtain nibbana, except in rare circumstances like the person who was gored to death by a bull as he attained enlightenment. Both Sariputta and Moggallana sought permission from the Buddha and wanted to end their life and attain nibbana. If this is suicide, are we all striving to commit suicide someday? Yeah. No, it's in one sense, yeah. Now the thing is, if you kill your body, you get reborn again mostly. So this is mental suicide, ending the stream of consciousness. But it's not really suicide, because an enlightened being realizes there's nothing there anyway. It's not killing or annihilating. It is the end of a long, drawn-out process. Nothing was there in the beginning. Nothing is there now. So it just goes back to nothing. Nothing lost. Nothing gained, because there was nothing there right now. That's a beautiful thing. One of Ajahn Chah's stories to me, was when he told me the meaning of life. When he asked why, and the answer was, I'll tell the story again later on. He said, there is nothing, there is nothing. It's a very beautiful teaching of a great master, there is nothing. Once you understand this nothing, then of course there's really no suicide. It's just nothing there, so nothing's ending. Nothing there before. But I'll talk about that later on. It's a bit late to talk about that. What is the difference between meditation for mental illness, cancer, studying, working enlightenment, arahat, bodhisattva? Nice simple question. The different meditation for the mental illness. Most I always thought that most mentally ill people should not meditate, because especially schizophrenics. Because schizophrenics, they see the visions, the stuff in their head, and sometimes the meditation can amplify that, make it even worse. The images or visions get even stronger because your mindfulness is getting stronger. But we have one monk in our monastery who was a clinical schizophrenic, and he's a great monk. And he can meditate, but he is so wise. Mindful and wisdom going together. Because when he first came to monastery, and he said, he's really honest, he said, look, I'm just clinical schizophrenic. Can I try it out? And what really impressed me was one day he came up to me and said, I'm losing it, I need to go to hospital. And he was mindful enough to know where he was at. So he went up to the hospital, got his medication sort of balanced, and came back again. And from that time on, he's been no problem whatsoever, and a great inspiration for everybody. A very kind, gentle, and obviously very wise person. He's aware enough of his condition. He knows how to handle it. And he's a wonderful monk. Sometimes he starts to lose it, and he knows exactly what to do. This is that simile of the snake, which I said. That's his snake, very easy to get lost in those delusions. He knows it, and he avoids it before it catches him. During mindfulness, relaxation, kindness, really, really excellent person. So he taught me, yes, you can be a schizophrenic and become a monk and meditate. Brilliant. Of course, that's a rarity because other people find it too difficult, but it can be done, which is one of the reasons why your mental illness, the problem is you call a person schizophrenic and everybody goes in the same category. However many people have that diagnosis, there's that many types of schizophrenia. You can't just say everybody is the same. That's why everybody should be treated as a completely unique individual. And number two, with something like mental illness, you stigmatize that person and said, you are bipolar. There is no such thing as a person who is bipolar. There's a person who exhibits bipolar behavior, but they're not bipolar. If you want to know the difference there, it's a classic story, two kids in the supermarket with their mothers at the checkout. And the first kid, he grabs hold of the honey and it drops on the floor and smashes on the floor. At the same time, in the next checkout parallel aisle, another kid picks up the milk carton and that falls on the floor and smashes. And the mother of the kid who dropped the honey said, you stupid boy. And the mother of the kid who dropped the milk said, that was a stupid thing you did. And there's a world of difference between the two of them. The first kid thinks he's stupid. The second kid, it was a stupid thing to do. But he's not stupid. He did a stupid act. He's not tarred with that label of being stupid for the rest of his life. And this is what we do with, say, someone with a mental illness. You are mentally ill. No. You've done something which exhibits mentally ill behavior. And there's a huge difference there. And when I said that story some years ago, and similar stories, at the Singapore Institute of Mental Health, where I gave a keynote speech at some anniversary, the head of the schizophrenia department took me aside so I could bless his ward. He said he was a Christian, but he didn't care. I gave a good talk. He respected me. And when I asked him on the way, how do you treat schizophrenia in Singapore? That's when he said this amazing response. He said, I do not treat schizophrenia in my unit. Just as you said, Ajahn Brahm, I treat the other part of the patient, the part which is not schizophrenic. And I had to ask him, what's the results? Far, far better than any conventional treatment. And you can understand why that works. You call someone a schizophrenic, and you treat them like a schizophrenic, they become a schizophrenic. You focus on the other part of their behavior, the other part of behavior gets stronger, squashing out the schizophrenia. So that's with meditation and wisdom. It's amazing how you can use that with mental illness. There's no such thing as a person who's mentally ill. There's people who have times of mental illness. That's all. And just a simple thing like that just changes the whole equation. Cancer, studying, working, enlightenment, arahat, bodhisattva, yeah. It's meditation, it's all the same. Making peace, being kind, being gentle, being wise. Dear Ajahn, if stillness is correct, then is it right stillness on the Eightfold Path? Yes. The last one, samma samadhi, not right concentration, it's right stillness. If so, what is wrong stillness? Wrong stillness is no stillness. What is like wrong speech? It doesn't mean being silent. It means like, speech which is, bad for you. What is like wrong livelihood? It means, just bad livelihood. So wrong stillness is when you're moving all over the place. Can understand wrong concentration, but doesn't see how wrong stillness is possible. Wrong stillness, it just means no stillness. You're moving around. Although they have this idea in some traditions, which is totally ridiculous, of like momentary samadhi. They call it momentary concentration. Now, if you call it stillness, momentary stillness, if you're still, it's not for one moment. If it's for one moment, it's not still. So it means a long period of time. That's why one of the reasons why when you translate this properly as stillness instead of concentration, it makes much more sense. And that is a far more accurate rendering of the Pali. And as I said, in the Chinese version, it's always stillness. I feel like traditional Buddhists cop a hard time. What's wrong with traditional Buddhism? As someone raised in the West, I can see a lot of beauty in the qualities of faith and devotion. Traditional Buddhists are usually very soft and cuddly, like Teddy, more so than rational scientific types. I am probably the most traditional Buddhist you will see, because I follow the traditions. Much of what we take to be traditional Buddhism is stuff which was added on afterwards, not from the time of the Buddha. So, all of the Buddha statues, that came a long time after the Buddha. There were no Buddha statues in the time of the Buddha. If there was any representation of the Buddha, it was as an empty seat or a Bodhi tree with nobody sitting under it, or a footprint, but without the foot or the sandal. That was traditionally in the ancient carvings how they depicted a Buddha. Not by a statue, not by relics, not by all this other stuff which we represent a Buddha by these days. So I'm one of the most traditional of the Buddhists. I keep the rules of Vinaya. You practice meditation, you teach. I ordain bhikkhunis. That is traditional. In the time of the Buddha they had bhikkhunis. So actually, if you actually learn what was the earliest form of Buddhism, I am one of the most traditional form. That's why, that sometimes people, Ajahn Brahm, you are just rebelling, you are just stirring things up. No, I'm just going back to the earliest tradition of even jhanas. That was the earliest tradition of Buddhism. So, I'm the most conservative of Buddhism, of Buddhists. People think you're radical. No, I'm just trying to get back to how the Buddha taught. Okay, here we go again about nuns. I'm in trouble again. Beyond the omitting nun joke yesterday, could you please elaborate on what looks like gender inequality in the Buddhist tradition, not unlike other major religions' philosophies? Perhaps the nuns can comment. Yeah, please do. Now, with the gender inequality, that is not traditional. The tradition was equality. But we lost that, mostly because of the patriarchal societies which have grown up over the centuries. And it's amazing that Buddhism was gender equal. And it's so hard to bring that back again. That's why I am a traditionalist and want to have that back again. And you all know that I got kicked out of Wat Pa Pong for actually being traditional. And say, let's have bhikkhunis back again. And it's such a fight to get that equality back again. Now you know that the nuns know that that monastery, Dhammasara, you know who has started that thing off? That was me. You know, as soon as we had Bodhinyana monastery, you know, what should we do next? Let's get a monastery for nuns. And that took a long time actually to start off with, you know, because they had faith in me, let's start a fund for a nuns monastery. That's how it started. And getting funds for nuns, you know, is really difficult. You know, that you had to raise a lot of money, but we raised the money for the monastery, for the land. I was there with Ajahn Chatamalo when that land was auctioned. I remember you were there as well, Rodney, at that day, at that auction, and you know what happened there. Before the auction happened, we got there earlier, and Ajahn Chatamalo and I, we really did some hard chanting to try and get that place. A bit unfair, you know, just using divine intervention. But it worked, we got that place, we couldn't afford it. You know, but we bid it anyway. That was good old Eddie Fernando. Totally rebellious, did not follow the instructions. You know, he bid way more than he was instructed to do. But, you know, good on him. We found the money eventually. Then we got to get some nuns. So we got Ajahn Wayama, and she sacrificed herself, did it really tough, and got cerebral problems. You know, but she's reasonably okay now. But it was so tough getting it going. And now just getting a place where they can actually have a hall and enough accommodation. And who's done all that fundraising? Ajahn Brahm, I even sold myself. It's absolutely true. Because people are doing all these auctions to raise money for the nuns' monastery. So what else can we auction? They auction my cushion, they auction my robe. So I thought, well, there's only one thing left to auction, me. So we had Ajahn Brahm for sale to the highest bidder for 1 week. And so, you know, I've been auctioned off. They raised a lot of money. There's about $250,000 for that. And so the guy who won me is taking me to Bhutan in February. And said, I can do 7 days, whatever you want me to do, within reason. But the only thing is, you have to return me in the same condition which you got me. And so it was a bit of fun, but you know, you're doing everything you possibly can to get that place going. And it's still a fight. And even now, if I wasn't behind this, it's you people. It's so easy for you to give a donation to monks' monastery. But when it comes to nuns' monastery, it's so hard to get donations. Why? Don't blame me. I'm blaming you people. Because, you know, think, nuns, it's not like Ajahn Brahm. You know, Ajahn Brahm teaches Dhamma and he does a lot of hard work. Let's support him. He may be enlightened. But these nuns, they're just women. You're the people who think like that. Not me. So a lot of time, inequity is not coming from the monks. It is coming from the lay supporters. And it's up to the monks actually to teach and encourage, but a lot of it is coming from the lay supporters. That's why I'm really proud, in one sense, of the lay supporters here in Perth. And I'm, quite frankly, I don't mind going on, I'm disgusted at the lay supporters in the United States. Because there's some really good bhikkhunis. And they haven't got anything, nowhere near like what we have here for the bhikkhunis in Perth. This is actually, you should be proud, this is leading the way throughout the whole world. Because those poor nuns in America, they were staying in this borrowed piece of land which was so wet that all of their buildings got such bad mold, the health authorities in California insisted they leave. And what are all these very wealthy Buddhists in the United States doing? The Richard Gere's, the Steve Jobs, the Mark Allen, the even please, I've met you before, and you know, the Google fellow, Chade Meng, you know, he says, I'm his hero. You know, you've got a lot of money, Chade Meng. Look after the nuns. You know, but they don't. So why not? So, and that's a bit embarrassing in a really rich culture which has got lots and lots and lots of Buddhists. And they let the nuns live in unhealthy places. So monks can do so much, but it's not our fault. Don't blame us. There's lots of monks who are just, a bit sort of not getting on the bandwagon, not so supporting the nuns. And it's not good enough to say, oh, the nuns okay, but I know I'm not doing. No, you have to do something to support the equity. This is a historic time in Buddhism, especially Theravada Buddhism. For hundreds of years, we haven't had equity. We lost it. It was there in the original. Traditional Buddhism, we are reintroducing. It's a struggle, but we're getting there. It's growing. And you should be proud that you're part of it. And you should be proud you can see women over there who are part of the historic reintroduction of equity in Theravada Buddhism. So you can be proud. People love being a Buddhist, but a lot of people told me years ago, they love Buddhism, they love all the teachings, but the thing which really gets to them, where are the nuns? So many other religions have been discriminatory. Please, not Buddhism too. So, you see a problem, you fix it. And that's what we're doing, we're fixing it. We aren't there yet, but we're much more advanced in Perth than probably any other place in the world. Even in Sri Lanka. Now, how many people give funds to the monks in Sri Lanka? How many people give their funds to the women in Sri Lanka? Those bhikkhunis there. They're just surviving, but only just. But many Sri Lankans will go and give alms and give donations to these big temples, but they neglect the bhikkhunis in Sri Lanka. I'm talking about the lay Buddhists. I'm doing my best. I go on TV over there and teach, but it's not right. You should look after the sanghas of both, and then we can have equity. And you all know, as Theravada Buddhists from Sri Lanka, that is supposed to be, the heartland of Buddhism, or Theravada Buddhism anyway. So you have a moral duty there to really get that Bhikkhuni Sangha going, to look after them, to make sure they've got enough funds, places to practice. So it's not just offering them alms, food, it's offering them places to stay. So hopefully that gets out there. But I'm passionate about these things, but it's obvious and it's just rotten. Anyway, we've also got P.S. Teddy bear's anatomy seems neither male nor female to me. So why not call her a thee? You've already gender discrimination. Why not call her a thee? Where's it gone anyway? Who's got teddy bear today? Oh, there's back. Very good. Okay. Very good. So yeah, if you haven't taken teddy bear up to your hut to serve, to do some teddy bear meditation, please do so. I don't know if it's something's inside here. What's this? We've got a rock here. Okay. Dear Ajahn Brahm, I was walking on the gravel path outside the meditation hall, minding my own business, when this rock caught my eye. It's amazing what one can find when we're not looking for anything. Thanks for showing us how to see. Just a beautiful piece of rock. Just an ordinary rock. Just a piece of gravel. But if you have mindfulness to see a world in a grain of sand, this is much more than a grain of sand. It's a beautiful rock with so many colours. A lot of times this is actually stuff which they use to pour concrete. And for many people it's just a rock, but you look at it more beautiful. Wow. It's even got a bit of gold in it. True. In the rocks here there is gold. Not enough to mine and make money, but enough to give a little bit of glitter on a piece of rock on the path. You can have a look at it, there is gold in there. You can just see on the outside there. Sparkling. Is that what you wanted to say about the gold? Yeah. There's a gold mine just south of here, the same sort of terrain. Not really enough here to mine. So you're sitting on gold. Yeah. But actually it's much more powerful than that. Here we go. This is the last little thing. Much more powerful than that. Sometimes people ask me, why have we got all this incredible Buddhist activity in Perth? We haven't got the same in Adelaide, many of Adelaide and Sydney, or in Melbourne or in Queensland. Why not? Why have we got this great monastery with 24 monks, Bodhinyana, this beautiful meditation center here, and a nuns monastery flourishing up in Gijiganap? And the reason is tectonic plates. Because if any of you are geologists, you would know the theory of tectonic plates, that hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, maybe 1 million years ago, where Western Australia is now, that was nestled in to India. Down below here on the sandy soil, that was under the sea. But right here on the edge of what we call the scarp, the Darling Scarp, that was part of the continent of India millions of years ago. And millions of years ago, in the times of Buddhas like Kassapa, they would have just walked over this land. Not Adelaide and Sydney, that's too far away. But Perth, yes. So you are probably sitting on land over which previous Buddhas walked and sat. That is why this is special. And you may laugh, but actually that tectonic place is absolutely true. This was nestled in India. There was no gap between that great Indian Ocean, was not there before. It was actually together. We drifted apart. For thousands of years we've drifted apart. But now we're together again. Yes?
Could it be possible that there was a land in between that just went underwater?
Atlantis? No. No, there wasn't anything land in between. Apparently, not according to the theory anyway. Because I think the rock here and the rock in that part of the eastern part of India is the same. So geologically, this formation here and that formation there is the same, which is another piece of evidence. That's why they realized that these two places actually drifted apart with the movement of the tectonic plates. So that is why Gijiganap, where the nuns are, you're right on the edge of the scarp, we're right on the edge of the scarp, as close as you can be to India.
Ajahn, the Dari fault lines on the 2J road, which is on the way to the monastery.
Yeah, so you're even closer there. We haven't got equity after all. You've got a better location than we have. That's unfair. Yeah. And it was true, isn't it? You see, from a holy nun confirms what you should already know, why the power is in Perth. Not in Korea, I'm afraid. Korea was a long way away. So you've come to the right place. There are quite a few people from Korea. Okay, so I've gone on long enough. Please excuse me for taking up so much time, especially with the nuns issue, because I'm quite passionate about it. I'm trying my best. We haven't reached there yet, but we are making progress, and you have to help. Very good. So, sadhu, sadhu.